Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to part 1 of my Warzone review for Modern Warfare 3's massive Season 1 update. Part 2 is going to be all the negatives, but part 1 is going to be focusing on the positives, the things I like, the positive direction the game is taking, the great colors on the map, and things like that. The gripes, the complaints, the balance issues are all going to be put in a different video. All of the gameplay today is PC gameplay, but it's actually from 3 different builds, high, medium, and low spec, and the video is sponsored by NVIDIA, so we'll be talking about their technology in a little bit. And I didn't post this day 1 because that's just not enough time to really judge a battle royale. I needed more playtime. I needed to get into the game and get a feel for it. What you're watching right now is actually my very first deployment, and I decided just to YOLO land on the train. We're going to go ahead and start off with all the good stuff with number 1, a silly thing, like an Archer joke. You can drive the train. I love that. I love that the train has a buy station, guaranteed legendary drop. You can stop it, make it go backwards, all sorts of fun stuff. And that's really the theme carrying through this video, is that it seems like Sledgehammer really wanted to focus on making Warzone fun. The design goal seems to be to return to Warzone 1 Verdansk kind of vibes, which I'm all here for because it was my personal favorite Warzone experience, not just because it was the first. I just think it was actually the best, and Sledgehammer put a greater emphasis on fun instead of competitiveness. So let's start off with some of those new fun things. First up, all of the new movement mechanics from Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer have been ported over into Warzone, and they work quite well here. It's really easy to mantle, to climb, to slide, to do all of the things that you want to do in Call of Duty, the tac stance. So I think that's a positive. We talked about that in the regular review. We don't have to focus too much on it. I think that's all positive. I'm all here for the faster movement, but they wanted to do more for Warzone. So they added loads of zip lines all over the map. It's way easier to get up and down and off of buildings. They even added a whole bunch of horizontal zip lines. So whereas previously people would hold the roof of a building, you'd have to brutally push up the stairs or go to another building and jump off. Now you're much more likely to be able to find a zip line for most buildings. On top of that, the parachute system for Warzone, I almost called it 3.0. It's not. It's still Warzone 2, but the Modern Warfare 3 update has a really generous parachute system. It's really quick to deploy. You get a lot of horizontal distance on it. And on top of that, the fall damage is quite forgiving. So you got a lot of zip lines, a lot of new movement, a lot of mantling, not so much fall damage, really rapid deploy parachutes. And the overall combination here is that you move a lot faster. The map feels a lot more fluid. You can zip around a little bit. It's not particularly realistic. It's arcadey, but I do enjoy it. I also like that you don't need to put on overkill on your classes to equip a primary and a secondary. Previously, at least in old Verdansk, you would have to have the overkill perk, so everybody would take their overkill one first and not have Ghost. But now I can have Ghost, and I can have my sniper rifle and my SMG and AR. So that's like a nice little quality of life change. There are hundreds of those little quality of life changes we'll talk about in a little bit. The graphics on the game has all the standard bells and whistles of Call of Duty's new engine, greater render distance, RTX, volumetric lighting and fog and water and things like that. But the important part for Warzone 2 Modern Warfare 3 Season 1 update is that it has much better aesthetics, much better lighting, much more color than Warzone 2 or the Al Mazrah map, which means the map is far more pleasing to look at, and it is way easier to identify enemies instead of everybody being a dark corner McDougal. One of the other nice things about the Season 1 update is that Warzone added NVIDIA DLSS 3. When this hits the sponsored segment, this video is sponsored by NVIDIA. Their GPUs power all of the cards I use in my house. But NVIDIA GeForce RTX players can already accelerate frame rates with DLSS 2.0. Basically, how this would work is it would use AI to super sample your image up to a higher quality so that the base render could be lower, thus burdening the GPU less and giving you more frames. Well, if you have a 40 series GPU, the DLSS 3 feature does that, but it also interlaces additional frames. So you can have dynamic scaling of resolution to lower the burden on your GPU, and you can dynamically generate new frames to really boost that kind of out the wazoo. I don't know if I should say words like that in the sponsored segment, but what that means for me is that I maintain a very high frame rate pretty much no matter what I'm doing on the map. So I like to cap mine at 120 because that's a really nice interval for OBS to capture at, but I can crank it up to 200 or higher if I want to. If you're curious about where to turn these features on PC, just click on the settings wheel in the top right menu, go to graphics, And in graphics, you're going to want to be on the quality tab. Now, it'll probably default you to display. You can see that I'm playing full screen. I do 120 FPS because that's what OBS likes. But in the quality tab, you can do graphic presets, your render resolution, dynamic scaling. But here we go, upscaling and sharpening. I don't have NVIDIA DLSS turned on. I have DLAA. So we're going to swap to DLSS, which uses AI to basically enhance both your resolution and frame rate. I like it on quality instead of performance, and you can adjust the sharpness. Sharper is better image quality, and I like it really crisp and really sharp, and I've got a 4090, so I crank that up. I also turn on ray tracing, and then if you scroll on down, you'll find NVIDIA Reflex. Turning that on significantly reduces your input delay and is a godsend. So the way this works is it uses the Ada Lovelace architecture. It takes previous frames, current frames, and some vector data directly from the game to generate new frames and pump them out crazy fast. So you get that really high frame rate, kind of almost no matter what spec rig you're running on. And this is a lot more burden on the GPU. It's doing more things. So NVIDIA added the reflex technology to decrease input delay. Sometimes when you do too many things, your input delay gets high. So they have NVIDIA Reflex on to reduce the input delay. Again, this is only available on 40 series GPUs. All of the gameplay in this video is captured by Shadowplay. A lot of the streamers you see use filters. All of my PCs run NVIDIA. I couldn't honestly be a better brand advocate, but that's why I've got such great frame rate. Let's go back to the rest of the review. More good things going on here is, again, like I said, the map is much better than Al Mazrah. It's about 20% smaller, which you would think is a bad thing, but it's way more dense. There's a lot more buildings. This isn't always a good thing. We'll talk about this a little bit in the bad video, but generally speaking, what that means is that it's really dense, really urban, really, there's a huge focus on verticality. There's a lot of floors to the buildings. There's a lot of interesting stuff to do. There's a lot of places to explore. There's a lot of basement areas. It's very, very dense. It reminds me of almost of Cyberpunk in a way. There's a wide variety of vehicles at launch. It's really easy to navigate the zip lines. I think that you can get up to the really tall buildings really quickly with the, on the cranes and stuff like that. I'm totally doing this out of order. The vehicles handle better. We got two types of helicopters, a couple of types of boats, all sorts of vehicles on the map. Sponsored cars is pretty funny to me. And the map timings are much faster than Warzone 2, with the idea of this being, as the developers told me, to create a more exciting mid-game. What they wanted is for the mid-game to be way more action-packed, because what was happening on Al Mazrah is people would land, they'd fight over the strongholds, then do nothing for 20 minutes, and then have a crazy end-game fight. The design here is to push people together closer. The strongholds don't open until later. So you're fighting more consistently, a little bit maybe more Apex-like. You're just constantly going at it, and it rewards aggressive players, which is usually a good thing. And it also results in slightly shorter matches, which is also a probably good thing. Sometimes Warzone matches would go on for a little bit too long. So when it comes to weapons and fighting mechanics, there is an astonishing weapon variety at launch. Not only do we have the ton of guns from Modern Warfare 3, we have all of the ones from Modern Warfare 2 and all of their various conversion kits and attachments and their blueprints and stuff like that. So there's a ton of different things you can play with. Thanks to the carryover and the integrations, you just launch with tons and tons of options. And after all of that, the ground loot ain't bad either. The ground loot is better in this game than it is in a lot of Battle Royale, so I'm quite happy with it. There is a huge variety in tacticals, lethals, streaks, equipment, and stuff like this. So you can play the game in a lot of different ways, and in its early phases at least, everything is relatively usable. A lot of people love the smoke grenades. There's even a perk that makes a smoke just poof right out of you when you die. I probably should have been using that. And there are very few horrible weapons in Warzone. Almost all of them are useful. Currently for meta, suppressors are dominant because they keep you off the radar, but not exclusively so. Even the 30-round spam shotgun is surprisingly viable. Sniper rifles are in a good place again. They have high muzzle velocity, and some of the more popular ones can one-shot headshot, so sniping feels very good. And I'm overall really happy with the variety of choices that I have to play this game, because not all Battle Royales allow you that. Sometimes you kind of end up being forced to do the meta or do nothing. Continuing with our discussion of weapons, recoil's a little bit all over the place, but I think a lot of that has to do with weapon kitting. There's a lot of variability there. Generally speaking, bullet velocity is easier to boost and more forgiving in this Warzone update than it has been in previous games, so the guns feel a little bit more like hit scans and a little bit less like pellet launchers. My guns generally feel satisfying to shoot, but gunfights are a little inconsistent. I don't know if this is a me problem or a balance problem. My personal suspicion is that it has to do with the new body multipliers. Warzone has multipliers for gut, stomach, chest, upper chest, neck, head, and they've all got different values and stuff. So depending on where people hit you, you can die a lot faster with certain weapons. So moving along, loads of operator variety because the store is already open. So day one, we've already got Skeletor, you know, we've got He-Man and Homelander and anime cat girls and crazy stuff like that, which I'm totally here for. I know the Milsim guys hate it, but I love it. And I really like the outro cinematic. The outro cinematic is really fun, where everybody gets roles based on what they did. The sniper, the medic, the supplier. I am really tired of being the dead weight, but I'm glad that they added that feature. It's a very funny feature, and we could use a few more things like that. So moving down the list of good things that I have here, buy stations and other points of interest seem relatively prevalent, which is good. You're never too far out of combat. You don't land in a completely empty dry zone. Even in the slower areas of the map, there's definitely still stuff to do. There are places to go. There are things to unlock. There's ways to get your gear back. Buying teammates back is cheaper, or you can get gulag tokens. It's pretty easy to buy your loadouts. You got, you know, mobile loadouts. You've got lower cost. You got so much stuff you can buy. So as long as you find a little bit of money, you can rekit really quickly. And I kind of like that. It kind of keeps me with the weapons that I want. When you redeploy from the gulag, you take some of those with you. I'm all here for it. And another thing that's been really good for me, and this isn't actually part of the sponsored segment of the video, is that my PC performance has been nothing less than excellent. Now, your mileage may vary, and your experience may be way better with a 40 series NVIDIA GPU like the 4090. I captured at least some of the gameplay here on today. So that's the way I would recommend going. The 40 series GPUs are great, but all of my PCs, I played on a 3070 and even an old 2080, and they both performed pretty well, so I have very few complaints about PC performance. And generally speaking, I'm overall very happy with the direction of the game. The developers seem to be kind of doing what the finals is doing, and they've decided to just focus on making it fun. They're not worried about competitive, they're not worried about ranked and stuff like that. They want to kind of recapture the original magic of old Verdansk. And they're trying to do that with wacky stuff, with variety, with faster gameplay, just doing a lot of things to kind of get you back in the game quite quickly. So the game is quite far from perfect. In a different video later this week, probably after I've played a little bit more, I'm going to come back and talk about some of the bad things that I've experienced. But I think this is a really strong start. I'm really happy with where Warzone is right now. Of course, it's launch week. Thousands, millions of people are downloading. The servers are blowing up. The guns are hot off the press. There's all sorts of little bugs and balance issues that'll be stamped out over time. But I think that the base idea for the game is, again, right. It's faster, there's more stuff to do, there's more movement, more guns, more fun, more wacky things, and I'm really all here for it. So I'm happy with this start, and I hope that this can build into a really solid product. All right, guys, that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.